Everybody, this is Perch. A few years ago, there's this cartoon that was circulating, and I think it might have been by that Dobson guy, but I'm not entirely sure. But in this cartoon, it basically laid out kind of the problems with the comic industry, and it talked about for years and years the comic industry was filled with dank, disgusting, terrible comic shops. And it was really hard on comic shops. It, like, for whatever reason, the anger of this cartoonist, this guy, like, I don't know if he got caught shoplifting at a comic shop and got thrown out on his ass at some point, or maybe he was sexually harassing somebody in the comic shop and they booted him. So but it was like, he's so pissed. Like, these comic shops are filled with disgusting, awful, misogynistic people, and they made it these very unfriendly for anyone but fat white men to come in and shop. And they were just, God, gross, dark, and awful, the worst places in the entire history of all comic shops. This guy went on and on and on about this, how horrible comic shops were. And then brave comic creators started making comics that were not for fat white men. And the comic industry is transformed into new, inclusive audiences and readers and everything else. And it was wonderful. It was great how we finally snatched the comic shops. We finally killed the comic shops off and got the comics out of there and into the hands of everyone who could enjoy them. This is a premise of this cartoon. As it is a stupid cartoon. It was stupid on a number of layers, but it sums up kind of the problem that the comic industry has found itself in, which is the comic industry has desired to expand its audience by appealing to new markets. And I want to say that's a great idea. It's absolutely a good idea. We need more people into comics. We need young, old, lots of different things. And it is a true fact that a heavy percentage of the comic buying audience was white and male. That is true. I wish it was otherwise, not because I want kind of not because I'm trying to create a Bennington ad for my store, but because, more people coming into the shop equals more money. So I would like to see more people coming into a shop. But regardless, I took offense to this cartoon for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. I didn't appreciate comic shops being portrayed like these like Jabba the Hutt style dungeons filled with gross, leering fat men, because that was never my shop. One of my first employees, like not number one, number two, was a gay guy who was a great, like, that guy sold so many comics. I love that guy. Like, to this day, like, I don't know what he's doing now, but like, I'd love to find him and be like, hey, come back, sell comics. Because that guy could sell just anything. And he was just a brilliant comic mind, wonderful. At any rate, I've had lots of women customers over the years, but it's true. The majority has been white and male, and I've always wanted to expand that, and I think the comic industry should expand that. But the challenge is, it's kind of the problem is in this cartoon. This cartoon says there were these terrible comic shops filled with awful people, and then new creators came along to tell inclusive stories, and then everyone had a comic to read. And it's like, hey, cool story, but there's one part you forgot in there. There's a missing step. It's kind of like, the underwear gnomes bit from South Park, where it's like step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. And it's like, hey, what was step 2? There's just silence. Like, there was no step. What was the step 2? Because step 2 is kind of important to get to step 3. It's like, don't worry about step 2. We're getting the underwear. Don't worry about it. Profit. That in a nutshell is the comic industry, because it has been, hey, step 1, we want to get the comics out of these gross white dude comic shops, and we're going to hire inclusive creators, and awesome, we're going to create things for different audiences. It's going to be perfect. Absolutely perfect. Step 2. Step 3, everyone has a comic to read, and we're making lots of money. It's like, hey, where, if you don't mind me asking, like, my hand's up, where are you gonna sell these comics? Well, don't worry about it. We got the creators. We got the creators making this content. Don't worry about that. It's fine. It's fine. It's like, yeah, but hang on a second. So let me follow your logic. You said that, the comic shops are filled with gross white dudes who are not inclusive. and they're not opening up to other people and everything else. I disagree with you, but okay, let's for the moment just go with your premise here. Your premise is the comic shop is broken. It's appealing only to one demographic: older white dudes. Okay. And then you're going to pump out a bunch more content. So okay, cool. Where are these other places that we're going to sell these comics? And it's like the tumbleweed is just going down. It's like, all right, so if you believe that these comic shops are terrible, awful, uninclusive places, but you're not going to find new places to sell the comics, where are you going to sell these new comics? Like you must be insane then, because you're saying the comic shops are bad areas for attracting a new audience. We're going to create comics for a new audience, and then we're going to sell them in the places that we say are bad, that do not attract new audiences. I don't think that plan's going to work. Just saying on the offset. Okay, so again, I disagree with the premise that comic shops that way. Comic shops, yes, I've been to a comic shop where you walk in there and you're like, oh, they're clearly after hours. They're filming snuff films in the back in the storeroom, clearly. But the vast majority of comic shops, I would say, are cluttered, but they've got comics there. It's not Nerd Town. I mean, maybe it's a little bit Nerd Town, but it's an inclusive Nerd Town. It's not. I like these cartoons, and I've seen others like they show like a person of color and a woman like walking into a comic shop, and the store is like, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And it's like that's not happening. I mean, keep in mind, most comic shop owners, like, they see anybody walk in the door, and it's like, "Oh my God, do you have money? We would like. What would you like? I'd like to take your money. What would you? What are you buying today? If anything, desperation would be the the proper meme to use. But it is. So I think that there are other people walking into a comic shop, but it is true. When people go into a liquor store, most of the people are looking to buy liquor. They're not going in there like, hey, you know what I would like? I would like some cheese. I think I'll go to the liquor store for that. They don't do that. Now, it's possible you go to an upscale liquor store and they've got some cheese in there because they're selling wine and they just happen to have a little assortment of cheese, but you wouldn't go there for that. It's like, hey, I want to go to this auto parts store because I'm looking for toys for my kid. Yeah, it's true. There's probably a small handful of small miniature cars there that you could give to your kid, but that's not where you'd go to buy toys. You wouldn't go to an auto parts store. And so if you are the comic industry and you're like trying to break into a bold, quote, new, underlined new market, why would you sell those things in the comic shop that has the existing market that you, the comic publisher, helped create for the last 40, 50 years? Certainly the direct market, which you comic publishers helped do. I know I did a video similar to this. I'm trying not to rant the same thing again, but you helped create this. And then you say, that place that I helped create is gross and bad and bigoted and sexist and awful, and we need to get comics into different people, and so we're going to send them to the comic stores that I just said were terrible. One thing that is weird, and I admit I resisted this for a long time. This is an area where I was wrong. Is for many years going to Comics Pro, going down to a summit in Portland, or going to the Comic Cons, going to the retailer luncheons or breakfasts or whatever it happens to be, and I'd hear other retailers say things like, Marvel, mostly Marvel, but Marvel and DC, they hate us. They hate us. I'm like, no, they do not hate you. They don't love you. They're not like giving us flowers. They don't hate retailers. And I think that I was more wrong in some ways, because as time has gone by, it feels more and more like there's a hard disdain. I think hate's too strong a word, but definitely a disdain for comic shops. And the puzzling thing about that is the comic shop, it purely exists to peddle whatever they're getting. So if you're sending them this stuff, if you're sending them comics, that comic shop is trying to figure out how to move it. That's all it's doing. That's its sole purpose in life. And if you don't get it stuff that it can sell, it starts to look for other stuff it can sell, or it goes out of business. So comic shops will migrate to selling more back issues, or selling games, or selling Funko, or whatever it happens to be. The comic shop will morph and evolve over time. But by and large, the comic shop is just trying to make rent. So in many cases, the comic shop's incredibly malleable. The comic shop is ready to take whatever you have to give it. And if you're going, hey, we believe there's this new market that's for STEM, girls getting into STEM. We think this is a big market. We are going to put this campaign out in the schools. We're going to direct everybody to the comic shops. You are going to have a bunch of teenage girls coming into your shop, very interested in science, and they're going to be wanting to buy the Wasp. So get ready. If you need to clean your shop up. But keep in mind, I'm not denying there are gross shops out there. There was one shop, I mentioned it before, I walk in there and the guy's just got porn going on the TV behind the counter. Like just full-blown porn. And I'm like, it's like 3 in the afternoon. Like I don't know why that was my first thought, but it's like, what are you doing? Why do you have porn on at 3 in the afternoon when the store's open? That's like, anyway, that's going to get you shut down. At any rate, so maybe Marvel needs to say, hey, all these science girls are going to be coming to your shop. So, you might want to clean the place up a little bit, just be prepared when they come in. Like if you've got a guy in there who likes to take off his pants, maybe fire that guy. Just get ready because teenage STEM girls are coming. You want to sell comics to them. So be ready. But of course that doesn't happen. And of course there is no outreach to the schools. And of course, the girls don't come to the comic shop because the girls don't even know the comic shop exists. And so it persists. It feels like we're stuck in this endless loop where the publishers and more Marvel desires a different place to sell their comics. But they're not in the business or interested in going to find those places, creating those places, changing those places. They're not in the interest of really sending an audience anywhere. And so they just kind of passively, aggressively hope for the audience to one day be different. And they're like, I'm just going to continue to badmouth these comic shops and then just kind of assume that one day they'll be new. I don't know if I think it was Dobson that did that cartoon. It always irritated the living hell out of me because it's clearly written and drawn by somebody who doesn't go to comic shops, has no idea what's going on there, and frankly is probably one of those pervs that's being talked about. I mean, I don't know, but just the guy gives off the cartoons give off a very strong perv vibe to me of somebody who like they know sleazy just a little too well. It's like when John Byrne was doing those issues of Superman where he introduced sleaze. And the guy was like, filming, porn out of a basement in the sewers in, slum alley of Metropolis. It's like, hey, you had that character down. Like, this is the same character who's taking nudie pictures of She-Hulk in a helicopter. Look, it looks like the same guy. Like, how do you know this guy so well? I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying you're a little on the nose. You've got this described super well. At any rate, that is my line. I think that, look, I think it's a good idea to expand the audience. Absolutely it is. We need more customers. Absolutely. I think that, step one, you ought to put a little bit more effort into the sales vehicle you have, the comic shop. You ought to put a little bit more effort there and maybe introduce some of this new audience to the magic of that comic shop. That would be great. And then number two, until you have a really good other option, maybe don't crap on comic shops so much because right now that's the place where your books are sold. And maybe you don't care if your books are really sold or not. Maybe you're just very, very confident that AT&T and Disney will just let you keep pumping this stuff out. But I don't think so. I mean, I talked to lots of creators. They would like their comics to be sold. They really would. They would appreciate sales. It's the comments I had. It's like there's this belief that the creators are just putting out unsellable comics for no apparent reason. No, they want those comics to sell. The responsibility is much less the creators, and it's much more editorial, and it's much more editorial's boss to start queuing these things up. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Look, I'm setting off now to do my annual tradition, which is, and it's a little bit different in Corona times, but I can still do it. I go to a mall on Christmas Eve, and I find myself a nice little place to sit. Ideally, a place that has some hard liquor. Have myself a glass of whiskey. Sit in this nice central place of the mall. It just so happens there's a mall in my area here in Bellevue that has a nice little. You can get some liquor. You can sit right in the middle, and watch the panicked people run around in the final 2 hours of the mall being open, trying to get presents. I don't know why that fills my heart with so much happiness to watch these people flip out, but damn it, it does. Anyway, when my kids are older, they're coming with me. Anyway, I hope everybody has a great holiday. This will go up after Christmas, so just trust me, it's a good time. I'm a terrible person. What can I say? I run a comic shop, so clearly I'm a terrible person. Anyway, like, subscribe, follow me on social media, send me an email, all that kind of stuff. Most importantly, thanks for listening.